Hello everyone, today's poem is Tang Feng, Ge a Tang Wind from the Book of Songs. This poem is a very beautiful, very sad condolence poem to the passed away. The general idea is it's for the passed away wife, and it was considered as the first condolence poem to the passed away. While I have a totally different will on this poem, it's for the ancestors. Of course, it's a condolence for the ancestors. The key point is in three angles. The first thing first, the main focus point or the main comparison is the Kudzu. So this plant with the long branches curved on the big trees, and it was always used as the parallel to the family tree, the branch families. So the main royal family is the stem of the big tree, and all the branch families, normally the state lord or even the junior state lord across the country, share the same blood with the Zhou people. They are considered as the branch families. They are the Kudzu that curved upon the main stem of the tree, and they also protect the root of the big tree. So they are a kind of mutual relationship. The main stem support all the branch families, which means the king of Zhou support all the families, all the states. On the other way, all the states, they keep they are sort of the protect support to the root of the big tree, to the royal family as well. So basically, the Kudzu is always with that image in the Book of Songs time. The second thing is the term, the character Mei, and it was always considered as beautiful, but in the time of Shijing's time, the Book of Songs time, it was always related or a metaphor or referring to their ancestors, the kings, the state lords. And because the original meaning of this character Mei means big, the character big is always the main character to describe the king, to describe the state lord in Book of Songs. And the third angle is this poem is so special with 5 paragraphs. So this is the very few states wind with 5 paragraphs. Just name a few. One is Guanju, the first poem in Book of Songs, and which could be considered as the root of the states wind of the Zhou people. So it's a little bit overstep. It's okay. And the other is Bei wind. So Bei wind is a very special wind in the Book of Songs, and that first poem in Bei wind is with 5 paragraphs, and which very likely implies that this poem was written by a king or a son or grandson of a king. Which king? The previous dynasty, the Shang king. And very likely this poem was written at the very beginning of the Zhou dynasty, and the son of the previous Shang dynasty, he is the lord of this state, the Bei state. And this song or this poem in Tang Wind is also with 5 paragraphs. Even it's not a very decent 5-paragraph structure. We will talk about that later. Anyhow, it still appears like a 5-paragraph poem, and which also implies that this state lord has a mindset of overstep. Overstep whom? Overstep the Zhou king. And this is very likely was written in the period of the spring and autumn period, which is a very chaos time, and the Zhou king lost his power, and everybody has a second thought, especially the Jin state, which is the Tang Wind from. The background photograph for the first 4 minutes is a time-lapse photograph to the South Pacific for 60 minutes. Okay, let's go to the poem. 葛生蒙楚，蔹蔓于野。The Kudzu was live on the big trees and covered big trees, and we collect the Kudzu branches in the wild. 予美亡此，谁与独处？ My lord, my father died here, and who would stay with him, or he will stay alone? So it's a little bit confusing that. Let's go to the second paragraph first, and then we'll go through, explain the whole things. The second paragraph. 葛生蒙棘，蔹蔓于域。The Kudzu covered the bushes of thorn. We collect these Kudzu branches in the wild, in this field. Be careful of the character yu. Normally, it refers to the place of cemetery, a place of dead people. Okay, let's continue. 予美亡此，谁与独兮？ My lord, my father died here. Who will stay with him? Who will accompany him? And will he rest alone? Will he rest alone? So, 独兮, xi means breath, and it has the extended meaning of take a rest. So these first 2 paragraphs described the Kudzu. So this is a very important metaphor. And the poet collects the Kudzu branches in 2 places. First thing first, in the wild, which means he get out of his town into the wild place. And the second place is yu, the cemetery. So it's the most wild place, the far place. So this described a process, an ongoing event that the poet, he get out of his town and into the wild to the far place of the cemetery, and he was collecting the Kudzu branch all the way along. So the Kudzu might be a very important material, not only by its metaphor. So in the 春秋左传, there is a story that in a funeral, everybody should take a piece of hemp rope, a rope made of hemp, and to the dead family, to the ancestors' temple, where the coffin was rest here. And in the day of bury the coffin, everybody will use that hemp to make it a big roll and to pull the coffin from the ancestor's temple to the cemetery and use that rope to place the coffin into the deep hole digged out beneath the earth. So that's the main process. So the rope of hemp was related with the funeral, with the cemetery all the time, and the people even should wear the clothes made of the hemp, 披麻戴孝. So that's a very, very familiar situation even today in the countryside. The stories in 春秋左传 is like this. The lord of Lu state had died and he would be buried per the code of conduct. Anyhow, that year is with a very special weather, and the hemp is, there's no hemp, or maybe the hemp was, the quality is not good enough. So everybody use the kudzu branches to make the rope to pull the coffin. So that's a story in the 春秋左传. And very likely this is not the only case when the state lord should be buried, his coffin should be pulled from the ancestor's temple to the cemetery. If there was not enough rope made of hemp, they will use the kudzu rope to replace it. So this makes sense with the first two paragraphs. The poet recalled the time when he was in the field to collect the kudzu to make the long rope. And when he was collecting the rope, the sadness is so heavy. He was murmuring, "My father died, my state lord died. How would he will be? Will he be fine? And where he would stay? And would he take a peaceful rest?" So it's all the heavy sadness. And to release the sadness, he has so many wild thoughts about his dead father. Now the third paragraph. 角枕粲兮，锦衾烂兮. The pillow made of horn was so bright shining. The nice silk quilt was so bright. 予美亡此，谁与独啖? My dad, my state lord, died here. Who will accompany him? Will he wake alone in the morning? 独啖 means he wake up in the morning alone. So the third paragraph is an ongoing event. It's something ongoing. The poet was pulling the rope of kudzu, and he was pulling the coffin, his father, the state lord, to the cemetery, all the way to the cemetery. And he saw his father laying in the coffin with the pillow made of horn, and he saw his father covered with the beautiful shining silk quilt. And this is the last moment he could see his father. And the next morning he could never see his father again. His father will be his father will be buried this day. So that's the most sadness murmuring. In the last sentence, 谁与独担? Who will accompany my father? Will he wake up alone in the morning? So basically, the whole 3 paragraphs make a complete poem already. And let's see the last 2 paragraphs. So what's that about? The 4th and 5th paragraph has a little bit change on the structure. The first sentence was composed of 3 characters rather than 4 typical characters. And I do believe this very likely is the chorus, the refrain to the main verse. The main verse is the first 3 paragraphs. So when this poem or this song was sang, the main song, the verse, is the first 3 paragraphs, and the 4th and 5th is the chorus. And the content is also totally different with the first paragraph. Let's see. 夏之日，冬之夜，百岁之后，归于其居。At the day of the summer, at the night of the winter, 百岁之后归于其居. When he died, finally he returned to his place, to his room. So here is something we need to figure out. What is the day of summer? It's the day of summer solstice. And the night of the winter is the night of winter solstice. This is the most 2 key days for the Zhou people. The most granted ceremony was always hosted in these 2 days. And why it's the day of the summer solstice? Because it was believed that at that noon of that day of that summer, it's the most positive time of a year. In Chinese, yang. And the night of the winter solstice, the most negative time of a year. In Chinese, yin. Basically, the positive and negative is not fully expressed. The meaning of the Chinese meaning of yin and yang. So you can have a look up what is yin and yang means in English. So in these 2 days, they will have the most grand ceremony in a year to heaven, to earth, to their ancestors. And so the last 2 paragraphs basically is looking forward to someday later in half year or maybe in a year. In that day, in that night, he imagines he will hold the most grand ceremony to pray, to offer sacrifice to his father, to the state lord who died today. And the term 居 and 室 could be a double referring. It referring to the tomb, the cemetery. It also referring to the ancestors' temples, because there would be a panel represent his father, the state lord, in the ancestors' temples. So when they hold the grand ceremony, it's not in the cemetery, it's in the ancestors' temples. They will offer all the best food, the wine, his prayer, his report, his plan to his ancestors. So the panel in the ancestors will represent his father. So the last two paragraphs is looking forward. And you can also find this poem was so sophisticated, managed, composed on the timing. The first two paragraphs is a recall. He was preparing the funeral to his father. And the third paragraph is a description of the ongoing moments. He was pulling the coffin, his father, to the cemetery. And the last two paragraphs is a looking forward. Something will happen in the future. And this thought, this feeling, this sadness, this maybe joyful, will start from very, very early time and which will never end. So that's my view on this poem, and I wish you have a nice day. Bye-bye.